abandoned. The sky above the alien world was red with strange clouds that moved like slow waves. A spaceship tore through the clouds, fire burning from its engines. Inside, alarms screamed. Lights flashed red. The crew shouted, trying to stay calm, but it was clear. They were going to crash. "Brace for impact," the captain shouted. The ship hit the ground hard, sliding across black stone and crashing into the side of a mountain. Metal twisted. Fire spread. Silence followed. Later, survivors crawled out of the wreck. Their suits were burned, their faces covered in dust. There were only 7 left out of 20. "We don't have much time," said Captain Rila, a tall alien with gray skin and glowing eyes. "This planet is unstable. Radiation is rising. We must leave quickly." They moved fast, searching for supplies and checking for other survivors. The air was thick and smelled like burnt plastic. Strange sounds echoed in the distance. Not animals, but something else. "Is he alive?" one crew member asked, pointing to a human body lying near the ship. It was Eli, the only human on the crew. He wasn't moving. "Gone," Rila said, turning away. "We can't wait." The crew left, carrying their supplies. A small ship, hidden in the back of the main wreck, lifted off and disappeared into the sky. Dust settled, but Eli wasn't dead. His eyes opened slowly. He coughed, blood on his lips. His head hurt, and his leg was broken. For a moment, he didn't remember where he was. Then it hit him. The crash, the fire, and the silence. "Hello?" he called, his voice weak. No answer. He looked around. The ship was destroyed. Smoke rose into the sky. The others were gone. His radio was broken. He was truly alone. Pain shot through his leg as he tried to stand. He found a metal pipe and used it like a crutch. Each step was a battle. The jungle. Around him was quiet. Too quiet. Trees were black and silver, their leaves shaped like knives. The ground was soft, almost like skin. In the shadows, red eyes watched him. Not animals. Something else. He moved slowly, finding a small cave in the rocks. He dragged some metal from the wreck to make a shelter. It wasn't much, but it would keep him hidden. He had no food, no water, and no help. But he was alive. Night fell fast on the alien world. The sky turned dark purple, stars blinked above, and the wind whispered in a strange language. Eli couldn't sleep. He could feel the planet watching him. Hours passed. Then, a sound. Movement outside the cave. He held his breath. Something was out there. Heavy steps. Sniffing. A low growl. He picked up a sharp piece of metal, ready to fight. The steps stopped, then slowly walked away. The next morning, he explored what was left of the ship. He found a water pack, some dried food, and a flare gun. It wasn't much, but it was something. He looked at the sky. No rescue ship, no message. No hope. Then he saw something strange. Footprints. Not human. 3 toes deep in the mud, walking in a circle around the crash site. "Great," he muttered. "I'm not alone." But it wasn't just one creature. There were more tracks, many more. He felt something cold in his chest. Fear, real and deep. Whatever lived on this planet, it didn't like visitors. And now, it knew he was here. As he sat on a broken wing of the ship, Eli whispered to himself, "They left me here. They thought I was dead." He looked at the jungle again, but I'm not. The wind picked up. Trees moved like they were alive. Far in the distance, a shadow passed through the trees, tall, thin, and fast. Eli held the metal weapon tight in his hand. He wasn't ready to die. Not yet. Survive. The second night on the alien planet was colder than the first. The wind howled, like a warning. Eli sat inside his small metal shelter, a flare gun beside him, and a sharp piece of steel in his hand. He hadn't slept, not even for a second. Outside, something moved through the trees. Click, click, click. The sound wasn't natural. It was like bones tapping together. It circled the shelter, then stopped. Eli held his breath. Then silence. He waited an hour before moving. The jungle had returned to its strange quiet. But Eli knew now he was being hunted. Something had found him. The next morning he limped out to explore. He needed better shelter. He needed a way to protect himself. Most of all, he needed to stay ahead of whatever was out there. He followed a narrow stream down the rocks, hoping to find a better place to hide. That's when he saw it, something impossible. A massive stone wall, half covered in vines. Carvings were etched into the surface, alien symbols glowing faint blue. The wall stretched into the mountain, leading into darkness, a hidden structure, buried, forgotten, ancient. He stepped closer. The carvings were warm to the touch, not dead technology, still active. His breath caught. "This isn't just a wild planet," he whispered. "Someone built this." Inside the ruins, the air was cooler. The walls were made of metal and stone mixed together, pulsing like a slow heartbeat. He found no doors, just open passageways that twisted like veins. There were no lights, yet everything was dimly visible. Like the walls themselves glowed. He didn't go too deep. Not yet. On the way back to camp, he spotted movement again. In the trees above, he stopped, didn't move. Watched carefully. A shadow leaped from one tree to another, tall, thin, and fast. The same shape he saw the day before, but now it was closer, too close. That night, he set traps using wire from the ship tied between trees. He sharpened sticks and placed them in the ground. He sat by the fire, body shaking from cold and fear. His leg ached badly, but he couldn't rest. Midnight came, then a snap. Something hit the trap. Eli grabbed the flare gun and ran outside. He expected a creature, but what he saw was worse, a drone. Damaged, but active. It looked like it had once belonged to the crew, but it had been changed. Its camera was glowing red. Wires were hanging like vines, and it was recording him. The drone turned and flew away into the jungle. Eli stared, heart pounding. Someone is watching me. He followed it the next morning, slow and careful. Hours passed. Then he reached a cliff and looked down. His eyes widened. There was a crashed alien pod at the bottom of the valley. Not human, not from his crew. A different species. The metal was dark green and shaped like an insect. He climbed down carefully. Inside the pod, there was someone alive, a tall alien, bleeding and barely breathing. Eli froze. Should he help? What if it was dangerous? The alien opened one eye, spoke weakly. "Help." Eli didn't understand the words, but he understood the pain. He pulled the creature out, gave it water, and used medical supplies from the wreck. It had 3 arms and skin like glass, glowing softly in the dark. The alien grabbed Eli's arm and looked into his eyes. There was fear, and something else. Relief. The next morning, the alien spoke again. This time, in broken English. "You, not them." Eli frowned. "Them?" The alien looked toward the jungle, its face twisted in fear. Then it said one word that sent chills through Eli's body. Hunters. Suddenly everything made sense. The clicks, the red eyes, the drone. This planet wasn't wild by accident. Something was using it, as a trap, as a game, and Eli was now part of it. He stood up, looking toward the trees. The wind was silent now. Even the birds were gone. Something was coming. Eli gripped the flare gun tighter. This was no longer about surviving until rescue. Now, it was war. The other Eli didn't sleep again. He sat by the fire, watching the alien he had saved, Kaari. She was tall, almost elegant, with deep green skin that shimmered in the light. Her body was weak, but her eyes were sharp. Too sharp. She wasn't just surviving. She was calculating. She hadn't said much, Only fragments of broken English, and most of it didn't make sense. Not alone. They watch. No escape. Eli had questions, 100 questions. But he knew something. Already, she wasn't a random crash survivor. She knew things about this planet. And she was afraid of whatever hunted them. By sunrise, Kari could stand. Barely. She leaned on the cave wall, watching Eli boil water from the stream. "You fixed drone?" she asked suddenly. Eli looked up. "What drone?" Her eyes narrowed. "It saw you, the red one. You followed it." "Yes," Eli replied. "It led me to you." Kari went quiet. She stared at the fire for a long time, then said, "Not a drone." "Not anymore." Eli paused. "Then what is it?" Kari looked him dead in the eyes. "A scout." Eli felt something cold creep into his stomach. "A scout for what?" Kari answered with just one word. "Hunters." Later, in the ruins near the crash site, Kari limped beside Eli. She didn't like being out in the open, but she wanted him to see something. Something important. They entered a dark tunnel, half collapsed from time and weather. The walls were still glowing, faintly, like veins of light under the surface. "This place," Kari whispered, "is not a home. It is a cage." Eli ran his fingers across the strange carvings. "Who built it?" Kari didn't answer at first, then she whispered, "They did." She pressed her hand against a symbol. The wall shifted and a panel slid open, revealing a room filled with tall glass tubes. Inside the tubes were bones. Alien bones. Human bones. Even creatures Eli had never seen before, all preserved, all displayed. "What the hell is this place?" Eli asked, his voice tight. Kari looked at the floor. "A trophy room." Eli sat down later that night, staring at the jungle. The fire crackled beside him, but it didn't warm him. He had seen war before. He had seen death. But this was something worse. This was sport. He looked over at Kari, who sat across the fire, sharpening a strange knife made from alien metal. "I saved you," he said, "but you haven't told me the truth." Kari stopped sharpening. "No one ever does," she said. He leaned forward. "Why were you really here? Who are these hunters?" She was silent for a while. Then she spoke slowly. "My people call them the Vakzir. They come to worlds like this. Worlds no one will miss. They turn them into games. And they hunt us. All of us. For training. For entertainment. For pride." Eli clenched his fists. "And we were just dropped in for fun?" Kari looked at him sadly. "You were left. I was taken. Same result. That night it rained. Heavy black rain that burned the skin if it touched too long. Acid rain. They hid under a thick piece of the ship, huddled close. Eli covered Kari with his jacket. She didn't speak, but she didn't stop him. For the first time, there was no fear in her eyes, only sorrow. "I had a team once," she said, softly. "They left me too." "Why?" "Because I failed a mission. In my culture, failure means weakness. Weakness is abandoned." Eli looked at her, then said, "In mine, we protect the weak. We don't leave our own." Kari's eyes locked on his. "That is why they fear you." Eli frowned. "Who?" She nodded slowly. "The Vakzir, humans. You fight different. Not for glory, not for self. You fight for each other. That is rare." Suddenly there was a sharp sound, like metal dragging across stone. Eli grabbed the flare gun. Kari stood up, eyes scanning the trees. Then it appeared, not fully visible, cloaked in some kind of shimmering armor. But they saw the outline. A Vakzir. 7 feet tall, thin but muscular, long blade arms. Its face was hidden behind a black mask with glowing blue symbols. It didn't charge. It didn't speak. It just watched. Then it pointed at Eli and vanished. Kari's voice shook. "They're not hunting you now." Eli turned to her. "Then who?" She looked back at the ruins. "Me." The message, The jungle was waking up. Not with birdsong or sunlight, but with movement. Branches didn't sway from the wind. They twisted unnaturally. Trees seemed to lean in closer when no one was watching. The soil beneath Eli's feet pulsed, like something breathing just beneath the surface. Eli stared into the canopy above, eyes scanning for the shimmer, the invisible hunter who had marked Kari. For now, it was gone. But not far. Kari crouched beside him, her eyes glowing faintly, in the dark. We need to move. The longer we wait, the more they watch. Where are we going? Eli asked. There's a comm beacon, she said. Deep in the ruins. They used it to broadcast before the hunters took this planet. Broadcast. What? Kari looked at him. A warning. The ruins became darker the deeper they went. These weren't like the earlier tunnels. These walls were smoother, colder, and carved with symbols neither of them could fully understand. Some glowed, some were cracked open, like something had burst out from inside. As they walked, Kari slowed. Her hand hovered above one of the walls. It speaks, she whispered. Eli frowned. What? Kari pressed her fingers against the symbols. A sudden flash of light passed through the wall, and a voice echoed in both their heads. Not words, not speech, images, a planet burning, aliens screaming, something tall and monstrous walking through the fire, dragging the bodies behind it. Eli stepped back, breathing hard. That's what they do, Kari said. They turn entire worlds into training grounds. The Vakzir don't conquer. They cleanse. For fun. For sport. They finally reached a large chamber buried deep in the mountain. In the center stood a tall device, rusted but still intact. A long metal tower, bent but humming with power. This is the beacon, Kari said. Eli moved closer. Can we use it? Kari nodded, but only one signal, short range. If your people are nearby, they might hear. If mine are closer, they'll respond. Eli stared at the control panel and froze. The screen showed something impossible, his crew's shuttle, still in orbit. They didn't leave the system, he whispered. They're still out there. Kari looked away, but they didn't come back either. Eli's jaw clenched. He tapped the screen, trying to boost the signal. I'm calling them. Kari grabbed his arm. No, you don't understand. What? If they come here, they'll be hunted, just like us. I'm not leaving them out there, Eli snapped. If they know I'm alive, they'll die, Kari said quietly, just like mine did. Suddenly, the room began to shake. Dust rained from the ceiling. Cracks split through the walls. The floor groaned like something deep below was stirring. Kari grabbed the console. The planet is rejecting the signal. It's alive, not just hunted, controlled. By who? By the Vakzir. This world is one of their oldest arenas. The ground itself is part of their system. It doesn't want outsiders sending messages. The shaking grew stronger. One of the side walls exploded, and from it crawled something new. Not a Vakzir, not a beast, a hybrid. Half machine, half flesh, arms like spears. No eyes, just a pulsing red core in its chest. It screeched and charged. Eli grabbed a metal rod and slammed it into the creature's leg. Kari fired her pulse blade. A short blast of light cut through its shoulder. It staggered, then exploded into a swarm of tiny machines like insects, crawling over the console. They're trying to shut it down, Kari shouted. Eli ran forward, grabbing a broken power cell and jamming it into the core of the beacon. The console lit up. A bright flash filled the room. The message was sent. Silence. The room was nearly destroyed. The floor cracked. The beacon sparked and died, but the signal was out. Eli lay on the ground, coughing. Kari helped him sit up. Do you think they heard it? He asked. I don't know, she said. But then the screen blinked. One signal. Received. Eli stared. Not from Earth, not from her people. Something else. A small message appeared. To the one who dares fight them, you are not alone. Kari stepped back, her face pale. "That's not a rescue ship," she whispered. Eli looked up at the sky. "No," he said. "That's a warning." That night the jungle was completely still. No hunters moved. No shadows passed. Too quiet. Kari sharpened her blade. "They know what we did." Eli nodded. "And they're coming." "For you?" she asked. He looked at her. "For both of us," he said. And somewhere far above, in orbit around the planet, a massive ship began to turn. Not human, not Vakzir. Something else watching, waiting, and listening. The choice the jungle was dead quiet. No insects, no wind. Not even the usual distant screeches from the forest. Eli felt it before he heard it. The kind of silence that waits for something. Kari stood at the edge of the ruins, eyes locked on the sky. There was a strange pulse in the air, like a heartbeat beneath the soil. The message had been received. Now they had to face the price. "Something's changed," she said. "Can you feel it?" Eli nodded. The air was heavier. The sky was darker. Even the plants seemed to draw inward, as if the planet itself was afraid of what was coming. Kari turned toward him. "We have to move." But before they could take a step, a beam of light shot down from the clouds, hitting a nearby cliff. A small shuttle began descending, engines humming. Not one of theirs, not human, but it bore Kari's people's symbol. A glowing spiral, surrounded by rings. "They came," she whispered. "I never thought they would." The ship landed softly on the rock, its door remaining closed. Kari looked at Eli, unsure. Then her wrist device blinked. A message. Priority. Eliminate. Contamination, non-aligned human presence detected. She read it out loud, her voice cracking at the end. Eli frowned. "So that's what I am to them. Contamination." Kari turned the screen off. "They'll take me, but not you." Inside the ruins, Eli packed supplies in silence. His mind replayed every moment. The crash, the survival, the drone, the hunters, the message. And now this. After everything, the rescue wasn't for both of them. It was a choice. Her life, or his. Kari entered slowly. "They gave me 5 minutes to decide," she said. Eli didn't answer. "I could lie," she said. "Say you died." He looked up, eyes tired. "Would they believe it?" Kari shook her head. "They'll scan the area. They'll know." He stood. "Then there's nothing to choose. I can't let them take me if they'll kill you." "After," she said firmly. Eli walked to the edge of the ruin, staring at the ship. "You've got a chance to survive, Kari. Go. Your people might listen to you after this. They might change." She stepped closer. "They won't change for me." "Then make them," he said. "Tell them what happened here. Tell them about the Vakzir, about how a human stayed behind so you could make it out." Kari stared at him, eyes wet but not blinking. "Why do humans do this? Sacrifice for others, even for strangers?" Eli smiled sadly. "Because if we don't, what are we?" Before she could reply, the ground shook violently. A massive shadow moved across the jungle, tall trees falling like matchsticks. Kari and Eli both turned as a creature emerged. Not a hunter, not a drone, a warlord, twice the size of the Vakzir they had seen. Its body was made of metal and bone, arms like spears and claws, and behind its mask, fire glowed. Not literal, but something angrier, deeper. It had come for them both, and, behind it, hundreds of smaller Vakzir followed. Kari activated her blade. Eli loaded the last flare into his gun. "We can't outrun it," she said. "We don't need to," Eli replied. "We just need to give you 5 minutes." Kari stared at him in disbelief. "No," she said. "I'm not leaving." But Eli was already running toward the warlord. He fired the flare straight into its chest, a blast of light and heat. It staggered, but barely. It let out a deep roar that made the mountain shake. Eli turned back to her. "Go," he shouted. Tell them a human stood here and didn't run. Kari hesitated, then turned and ran toward the shuttle. The fight was brutal. Eli used every trap they had left, every scrap of metal. The jungle burned around him. The warlord's spear arm sliced the air where Eli had been just moments before. But Eli kept moving, kept shouting, kept drawing them away. On the cliff above, Kari reached the shuttle. The door opened. Two of her kind stood inside, emotionless. "Where is the human?" one asked. Kari didn't answer. Inside the ship, she watched the feed from the drone. Eli standing alone, bleeding, still fighting. She looked at the officer. "Send a strike, right now, on my command." He hesitated, but he's still... "Do it." From above, a flash of energy lit the sky. The jungle below exploded, flame and shockwave tearing through trees and creatures alike. The feed went dark. Silence. Later, in orbit, Kari sat in the command chair of the returning ship. She wore Eli's jacket now, torn, burned. In her hand, she held the small recording he left behind, a message from before he ran. "If you're watching this, it means I didn't make it. That's okay. Someone had to stay. Just make sure someone remembers why. Not for glory, not for orders, for the one beside you." The sacrifice. The silence in space was not peaceful. It was heavy. Inside the alien cruiser, Kari stood alone in the observation chamber. Below her, the planet slowly turned, smoke rising where jungle once grew. The blast zone was visible even from orbit, like a wound carved into the surface. Eli was down there. Maybe. Maybe not. The ship's medical officer entered without a word. He handed her a small glass case. Inside it, a folded piece of fabric, charred, and dark red. His jacket. She didn't cry. Not yet. She turned toward the display showing the beacon logs. Signal. Received subject. Human presence confirmed. Status. Eliminated. Unconfirmed. Her fingers hovered over the console. She replayed the final moments again and again. Eli's flare exploding against the warlord's chest. His last stand. His last words. Make them remember why. But no one was remembering. The officer beside her said coldly, "We should return to the homeworld. Your report will help close the case." "Is that all this is to you?" she asked, quietly. "A report?" He didn't answer. She looked at him, eyes colder than space. "You left me once," she said. He didn't. Back on the surface, deep beneath the wreckage, a flicker of movement. The warlord was dead, its body half melted, buried in burning roots. But in the middle of the destruction, a shape crawled from the fire. Broken, bleeding, but alive. Eli. His suit was ruined, his body barely holding together. But his mind, sharp, burning, focused. He limped through ash and cracked earth, dragging a metal rod as a crutch. The jungle whispered around him. He wasn't alone. The Vaxir weren't. Finished. 3 of them remained, scouts, moving through the wreckage. They searched not for survivors, but for evidence. The game was not just to kill. It was to erase, to leave no one behind who could speak. Eli knew what they were doing. He couldn't let them succeed. He had no more weapons, no more backup. No strength left, but he had something else. A final choice. On the ship above, Kari argued with the command staff. Her voice was sharp now, no longer quiet and obedient. "You saw what he did," she said. "He saved me. He saved this ship. He was an anomaly," the officer replied. "Humans are unstable. Their emotional patterns. He had more honor than any of you," she shouted. Silence. She walked to the center of the bridge and placed the glass case on the floor. "This jacket," she said, "was the armor of a human. It belonged to Eli, the one you call contamination. He bled for someone not his own." Then she turned to the screen. "Scan the surface. Now." The operator hesitated. "Do it," she ordered. The scan returned faint readings. One life. Sign, moving slowly, fading fast. Kari's chest tightened. He's alive. Back on the ground, Eli reached the edge of the ruins, where the beacon once stood. His body trembled, but he forced himself to keep moving. Then a shape blocked his path, a Vakzir scout. It didn't speak. It raised its weapon, a curved blade charged with dark energy. Eli couldn't run, so he raised his fists. The scout lunged, a blur of motion. Eli dodged, barely. He grabbed a rock and smashed it against the creature's face. The blade cut into his side, but he didn't fall. He screamed in pain, not from fear, but from rage, from defiance. The fight was short, brutal, and loud. When it ended, Eli stood, over the broken body, bleeding badly, swaying on his feet. He didn't collapse, not yet. Above, Kari made her decision. "I'm going down. You are not authorized," the commander said. "I don't need authorization," she replied. "I need justice." She walked to the shuttle bay, alone. Inside the dropship, she looked at the pilot. "Land where the beacon was. He's there." "Ma'am, the radiation. Land." The shuttle broke through the clouds just as the sun rose over the burning forest. Ash rained from the sky like snow. Kari found him standing near the cliff, now barely breathing. "Eli." His head turned slowly, one eye swollen shut, blood on his lips. "You're real," he said, voice rough. "You idiot," she said, laughing and crying at once. "You were supposed to die dramatically, not crawl out of the fire like a ghost." He grinned. "Changed my mind." She caught him as he collapsed, holding him against her. "You saved me," she whispered. He coughed. "Yeah. Well, don't. Get used to it." Hours later, in orbit, the medical bay was silent. Eli was unconscious but alive. Kari stood before the council screen, a live transmission from her homeworld. "You disobeyed orders," one voice said. "You risked contamination of species code." Kari held up the jacket. "No, I learned from someone who made a better code, one that values life." "Then what is your final report?" they asked. She looked directly at the screen. "My report?" she said, then smiled. "Humanity is not a weakness, it's a warning." Legacy, 10 years later. The war was over, or at least, the hunting had stopped. The Vakzir were gone, vanished from known space. No more signals, no more ships, no more trophies. The galaxy had gone quiet where they once ruled. Some said they went into hiding. Others believed they were watching, waiting for a new game. But Kari knew the truth. They were afraid. On the edge of the Kale system, a once silent moon turned sanctuary, stood a monument, not tall, not grand, just a single suit, burnt, torn. Amentu framed in black stone, above it carved in 2 languages, one alien, one Earth standard. He was left to die. He chose to save. He became the reason we changed. Kari stood before the monument, the wind tugging at her cloak. Around her, a crowd gathered. Humans, Kalins, even a few species once hunted. Survivors, warriors, children who had never known the old ways. Behind her, a gathering of leaders and elders waited. It was Remembrance Day, the day they honored the one who stayed. She stepped up to the stone platform and looked at them all. Her voice, when she spoke, carried across the quiet air. "There was a time," she said, "when we believed strength meant victory. That mercy was weakness, that those who failed deserved to be forgotten." She turned to face the suit. "I believed that too, until I met him." Years ago, after the rescue, Kari had brought Eli back to her world. Doctors said he wouldn't survive the night. He survived the week, then the month, then the year. But his body never fully healed. He couldn't run anymore, couldn't lift weapons. The fire that kept him alive now burned slowly, but he was alive. And his words, his choices, they spread like wildfire to other crews, to students, to political chambers that once called humans reckless and untamable. And now, Humans were no longer banned from Kaari's world. They were invited. On that stage, Kaari told the story again. Not the war, not the battle, but the moment. The moment Eli could have saved himself, and chose not to. He stayed, she said, because he believed no life should be decided by a cold command, because he believed no species, no soul, is ever truly alone. She stepped down from the platform and walked into the crowd. From the shadows, a figure stepped forward. Older now. Slower, but unmistakable. Eli. His limp was worse, but his eyes were sharp. He didn't like attention, didn't want speeches, but today wasn't about him. It was about what he had left behind. Kaari stood beside him, and for a moment, neither said anything. Then he whispered, "You said they'd forget me." Kaari smiled. They didn't. Later, that night under a star-filled sky, Kaari and Eli sat at the edge of the monument garden. Children ran through the grass. Lights blinked from ships in orbit. Peace. It wasn't perfect, but it was possible. "You think the Vakzir are really gone?" Eli asked. Kaari was quiet for a moment. "No," she said. "I think they're hiding. I think they're afraid of what you represent." "And what's that?" he asked. Kaari looked at him. "The one thing they could never understand," she said. "A species that fights not to win, but to protect." She looked out at the stars. Humanity. Somewhere, far beyond known space in a forgotten system. A massive ship drifted in darkness, silent, cold. Inside a chamber filled with masks, trophies, collected across galaxies. But one display stood empty, shattered, burned. The hunter who placed it there never returned, and the others knew why. They were not hunting prey anymore. They were hunting legends. On the monument moon, a small child touched the base of the human suit and asked, "Who was he?" A guide leaned down and smiled. He was the one who stayed.